Hello and welcome to Football 360. Before I move on to this week's guest, I just want to say thank you to everyone who's helped me so far with the production and promotion of Football 360. I started it with the intention of just sharing some content to see if a few people out there liked it. I would be talking football anyway, as most of you know, but it's been really well received. I've had so much help and support, suggestions, introductions to people who could be potential guests in the future. And I really do appreciate everyone's support on it. I'm going to continue to do it. I don't think it's going to make me a rich man. I don't think it's going to make any money. But that wasn't the intention. The idea was simply to put something out there that a few people would enjoy. Based on the feedback I'm getting, I think that's the case. So I'm happy about that. But most of all, I just want to say thank you. This week's guest is Mike Morton. Mikey is a great guy, former teammate of mine, and has been a coach for an awfully long time now, for one who's not even 40 yet. He's worked at Man City, worked at Leeds before that, set up his own academy in York, which he subsequently sold to I, who are a really successful brand now in football. And he's also worked in a semi-professional game as a coach, as a joint manager and as a manager. Probably made quite a few mistakes, I guess, as a young manager in the game, and I think that all kind of contributes to the significant experience and the knowledge that he has now. He's a brilliant coach out on the grass, worked with some fantastic players who've gone into the professional game, both here and beyond into Europe, and he's just a really nice guy. I always enjoy talking to him about the game in general. I find him a real deep thinker about the game, really passionate about tactics, about development, systems and development processes for young footballers. And he's just a real old school football guy with a lot of new school knowledge. So I really hope you all enjoy the discussion with Mike. I think I'm going to. Cheers, guys. Welcome to Football 360 this week. Really delighted to have Mikey Morton on. Mikey, how are you doing, pal?
I'm good, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good. It's chucking it down with rain in Spain here, so all those pictures I put on social media with the sun, I'm gonna have to put on some pictures of drowned rats, because that's what we've got today. I've got puddles all over the chip shop. But anyway, great, mate. Great to have you on board. Mikey is the lead coach for the Leeds United under-16s in the academy there, and really looking forward to this conversation. So we're going to go into the warm-up, Mikey, which a few questions just to get you started, get the juices flowing. So first off, your favourite player ever and why?
Favourite player? Zidane. It's got to be Zidane for me. I sort of say that actually. I was thinking about it because obviously I've listened to a few of your podcasts and I was sort of thinking about this question because there's so many good players. The reason why I sort of picked Zidane is because if you look at like the modern game now, you look at the three roles in midfield. You know, you've got more your defensive midfielder, the one who can do a little bit of both, and your attacking midfielder. Yeah, I just think Zidane could do them all. You know, you could comfortably play him in a holding role. You could play him to do both. You could play him as an attacking midfielder. So for me, like, you know, he stands out for me.
I'd even go, first of all, that's the answer that I'd give if anyone asked me. And I'd even go so far as to say I think he could be an exceptional central defender as well in a 3, in a 2. I think he could play most positions on the pitch. But yeah, his highlights reel, particularly that one that comes over his shoulder when he takes it down, turns, spins, and turns away from an opponent, all in the same motion. Just, I've never seen anything like it, and he was unbelievable. Great choice, mate.
The game looked so easy, didn't he? And I think that's what it was. And he's just phenomenal to watch. And obviously, as I was growing up a little bit, he was sort of coming on the scenes, and you know, I could watch him all day, and I could watch his like highlights back all day. I still use videos now of him to show the players because like, I think it's important. He can use both feet. He can twist and turn. He could play in all different positions. He could score goals. He could play long range passes. He could just do everything. And he had a little bit of an edge to it as well.
Yeah, 100%. What a great answer, mate. Okay, favourite team ever and why?
It's a great one, this. Funny enough, I was sat with Mr. Collins the other day and we were going through like the Champions League winners.
Yeah.
Funny
Just
enough,
for those who don't know, Si Collins, Si and Mikey have worked together in coaching roles at professional clubs and also in the semi-professional game as well. So Si's a great guy. I hope he's listening and I hope he's well.
He will be. He won't mind me mentioning his name. So, but no, we're just before the Derby game the other day. So Liverpool Man U, and we're just sat there going through the Champions League winners. And funny enough, the first team that sprung to mind for me was, and it's a bit of a different one actually, was AC Milan in the early 90s.
Yeah.
And you know, with the Van Basten and Gullit and who else, Baresi, young Maldini, you know, that team. I think reason why that sort of sprung to mind was like, you know, when was it Goal Italia that came out? Was it Goal Italia? Was it called on the Sunday?
On Channel 4, Gazzetta.
Yeah, that's it, Gazzetta. So I think that sort of when it highlighted like the Italian league more, you sort of stand up and take notice, and it was some team that. And then I remember as a young boy, the AC Milan Barcelona game. I think it was 93, 94, and they were missing all the big players, and I was disappointed as a kid. But they won 4-0, didn't they? So I think that's sort of one of the teams sort of sprung to mind when me and Sarah was talking about it. And then when you just answered the question there. And then AC Milan in 2003, same sort of mould of players. In there, you've got your Maldini and Nesta, players who could defend, which I think is a big part of it. Gattuso in midfield who could break play up. And then you had your flair players, you had your Pirlos and Shevchenkos, Rui Costa. But the reason why that sort of comes to mind is just the balance in the team. You know, players in there wanted to defend and were happy to defend, and then players who would go and do the creative things and open up doors. So they're the teams. I know there's been the more modern teams like Barcelona. We could talk about the Pep team for hours, but for me, them sort of two AC Milan teams sort of spring to mind. And I think obviously with them playing the Diamond as well, it was slightly different for me when I was coming up. Like never really seen the Diamond much. So it sort of intrigued me a little bit.
Yeah, love it. Great stuff. Always nice to get these different answers in there from people as well. Love it. Okay, if you had the opportunity to pick a manager to win a football match with the best players in the world playing for him, they have a cup final, and the result of that game is the most important thing around, the result of that 90-minute game, which manager do you choose to get a win?
Oh, great question. Are we talking? We're just talking a one-off game, no training.
Just a one-off game. Don't talk about building. Don't talk about development. Don't talk about anything other than winning that one match.
I don't think you can move away from Jose. For me, I think he's that player. I mean, listen, do I think there's better managers around there at the moment? Yes, I do. But they've got to take time to build a culture. But if you're for that sort of scenario, I would just say Jose. He'd go in, get a result for one game. He'd be the man that I'd back 100%.
Brilliant. Good man. Okay, I'm 100% see that. I think it might well be the answer that I would have come up with as well. Okay, final question. Little known fact about Mikey Morton that no one would know other than maybe that you're very nearest and dearest.
Interesting. Something totally away from football. I like art.
Art?
Yeah, I love art. Funny enough, I took GCSE arts at school. That was probably my best subject apart from sport, believe it or not. So yeah, I like art.
And do you still? I mean, you appreciate art, or do you actually continue to do stuff? You know?
No, yes. Listen, I appreciate art. I don't draw as much as I used to. Especially when I moved out from my grandma's. She's got all my paint stuff, but. No, listen. I think most of my art now is just drawing tactics and things like that. But I do have art around the house and things like that. I do love it.
Nice, good man. Nice, I like it. I love it. Love a left field answer on that one. Brilliant. Okay, pal. Let's get into the main event. The whistle's blown. Game started. So let's get into it. Can you tell us a little bit about? You probably focused on coaching earlier than many in terms of your playing career obviously started off really well, but you very quickly moved into coaching fairly early on. How did that go? How did you feel about it? What was it? Do you feel like you left anything behind as a player, or do you think it was the right thing to go into coaching as early as you did?
I think it sort of set its course as a player. I think, if you want me to go into it, I think when you look at it, I know obviously I played with yourself and both played around the circuit a little bit. I'd met, when I went to Garforth, actually, I was playing and coaching at Leeds United. The manager at the time was actually the one who got me to Leeds. So as you can imagine, when you start to work with the younger ones at Leeds, it's on an evening. So when I moved and then stepped up 2 leagues to play, it was really difficult to balance it, playing on training on a Tuesday, training on a Thursday, playing on a Saturday, and coaching around that. And it was really, really, really difficult. It was difficult, and I know you'll have been through it yourself. And it came to sort of lockheads really, where I was starting to miss training, so I was getting fined from the club, rightly so, because I kept training on a Tuesday. So luckily the manager at the time was good with me, but then I was training on a Thursday, playing on a Saturday, and I just didn't feel it was right. And I went through it for a while. It's like you sort of feel cheeky when you're not training all the time and you're playing. And then there was an instance around Christmas time where I think I'd played on Tuesday night in an FA Cup game. I then travelled to Liverpool on a Friday night, and then I had to miss training. And then your manager at the club at the time where I was working, obviously, wasn't happy. And I just had to make a decision. So I made a decision that season just to sort of focus on the coaching till the end of the year and see what I could do. And then it was one of them, do I drop a few leagues as a player and balance it with coaching? It just wasn't going to work. So funny enough, I just went fully into coaching from there. Do I miss football? Yes, I do, but probably wouldn't have the experience I had now if I hadn't made that decision.
Yeah. I miss playing a little bit, but not a lot. Yeah. I felt like coaching was maybe something I should have done even earlier. So in some ways, I look at you and I think that's a class move. That was either foresight or just gut feeling or whatever. But I think it's paid off, to be fair.
I think it's just scenarios, isn't it? I just remember being sat in the car, travelling back from Liverpool on a Friday night. I know it's a random day, but just thinking, what am I doing? I'm stuck. Yeah. I felt bad because one person was happy and the other person wasn't happy. And there was actually a funny story, actually. And I know he played that. I tried to balance both out on a Saturday morning. So I had a training session for Leeds on the morning, what am I saying? And we're playing Barrow away in the afternoon. So you know the trek.
Hell of a trek. One of the worst away trips, Barrow. Great, great ground, great club, but yeah, a long way.
So funny enough, I've tried to balance it out and keep them both happy, not saying one to the other, saying I'm not doing it. But anyway, I finished training, and my granddad, he's trips us all the way up to Barrow as a young lad. Literally 20 minutes into the game, I get there. So you can imagine the sort of situation. Obviously, I'd let the gaffer know, but I came on at half time, and it was a cracking game. We ended up winning, but the point was, when you're driving home, you think, what am I doing? And it's all them little moments, that sort of defined sort of probably who I am now. So if I had gone through them moments, it would have gone a different way.
Yeah.
Nice. Funny story. I don't think I got any wages that week.
I'm not surprised. I wouldn't have given you any, pal.
No, on both sides.
Okay, so you and Si set up your own business, didn't you? Tell us a bit more about that and what that journey was like.
Yeah, funny enough, it was actually Si's business. Si used to be in tours, didn't he? He used to take pro clubs abroad, bring pro clubs to the UK. So at the time, it was UST Academy, and obviously at the time we were working. I think I was at Man City at the time. Yeah, I was, but we were doing a lot of talent identification at the time. So we're going out and watching 23s games, 21s games. And you just start to see a pool of players constantly playing and then getting released. Yeah. And it was one of them where me and Si was like, he was a good player. he was a good player. We just kept having the same conversation every week. And then we was like, why don't we set something up just to try support them players? So funny enough, we set up one night a week in York, and we started to find all the players who were getting released from clubs and the better local players, and just offering them one night a week of training.
Yeah.
Which then turned into 2 nights a week because the lads were enjoying it. And listen, like we didn't make any money on it. I think listen, we were dabbling into our pocket quite a bit, but it was just more about the players and experimenting with things. And it was really, really good. It was really good at the time. We had players, believe it or not, we had players from 15 to 21. I won't say his name was 21 because he'd kill me. But a 21-year-old who could have gone on to be a big name in the game, who got a few injuries, was training with a 15-year-old, which obviously I know you know the twins, Vieira twins. But what we had there was just brilliant. It was sort of like good training. We could experiment a little bit. The players knew what we wanted. And we got to an opportunity where we started to play pro clubs and do really well. And it was like it was something that we wanted to run with, but it was just so hard financially. Yeah. But it was really good. It was a good start, and we've got a lot of players into semi-professional, a lot into America, and obviously there's 5 or 6 of them now playing pro. So it was worthwhile in the end, if I'm honest.
Well, I think a compliment I can pay you both there is that whenever I had players that had been at UST, had been with you two, technically there was a very clear pattern in terms of their fundamentals were excellent, but more than that, they were ready for life. They were really well behaved, respectful, hard-working young people who I think that's the biggest compliment I can pay you. The football's one thing, but I think that was something that I know, it wasn't just me who noticed that. I know a lot of people felt that. Yeah, that in itself, it might not be specifically the football type of stuff you and I are going to go on to discuss, but still an achievement in itself for sure. Okay, let's you just talked about the Vieira brothers, and I mean Ronnie's out in Italy now. I mean you must sit there sometimes and turn on. I saw. I don't know who did he play against a couple of weeks ago? I can't remember. Inter Milan, someone like that, and you're like, this kid who, you remember the bus journeys and what have you, and 3 or 4 bus journeys to get to your sessions, and now he's playing in the San Siro in Serie A. I mean, that must be surreal.
Oh yeah, it's probably, if I'm honest, probably like the proudest moment when we saw his debut at Leeds. When me and Si talk about it all the time, it's still like, it sort of gets, even when you're talking about it there, it sort of gets me a little bit eyes on the neck. But I think that's why we do what we do and why we're driven to sort of keep doing it, and why we believe in sort of giving certain players a bit more time. And listen, it's great to have that. And I know there's a lot of people who don't really know the story and think, oh, we must have got hold of a really good player. And it's just, listen, the hard work behind the scenes from him and his brother and all the lads as well at training sort of helped for him to get to where he's at. It's an unbelievable story. Like, again, we could talk an hour about it, but it's credit to the boys because they've got to be driven. It's got to come from in, and the dedication. Like, I'm not joking. I mean, to be fair, Si spotted them playing local level. Like, Si used to go out and watch random games, like grassroots games, and we used to have kids coming in from all over, like, little street kids, and he brought in 4 of them from Leeds. And he said, trust me, there's some players here. So really, the credit with Si for spotting him, and then the dedication comes from them of getting there, 2 bus journeys to get there. And we just got a brand new training facility where we started to train, and it's one of the hardest places to get to in York if you live in York.
Yeah.
And first training night, we said to the boys, look, there's the postcode. If you want to get there, don't worry about it. It's not a problem. And we turn up, we weren't expecting them, 2 50-year-old boys, and they're there before everybody. And only one of them speaks English.
Wow. And
then sort of sit there and they're in the little kits, and like, you just think, wow, So listen, when you've got kids like that who are hungry and they want to get to the top, they're the easiest to sort of guide. It's an unbelievable.
I've got hairs up the back of my neck. I mean, it's an amazing story. Yeah. What more can you say about it? I remember seeing from arm's length, seeing them come down to games, and support their pals who, obviously perhaps were less, less lauded, less high profile players, but they were all in it together. You could tell there was a group of them who, stuck in and mixed together, looked after each other, and I just think it's a wonderful story. Amazing. Okay.
Sorry, mate.
No.
I think that's one of the things we sort of created, though. It was like not us against the world, but we wanted the players to go and prove a point.
Yeah.
So that was the environment we created. So it was like, so can we work a little bit harder than everybody else who's got the privilege of being at a pro club or somewhere else? And I think that's what we did, and it even sticks with us now. Like you said, they'll come watch games. They'll still go watch the college games and the eye-to-eye games or UST games at the time. So yeah, that was sort of the culture that we created. So yeah, it's great to see.
Yeah, definitely. No, well done, mate. Fantastic achievement for you and Si, and for the boys themselves, most importantly. Okay, so let's go from Serie A to North East Counties football. Yeah. You and Pete Vasey took over at Pickering Town when you were how old?
I would be mid-20s. I couldn't give you a fact, but I reckon I'd been about 26, 27. I reckon.
I think at the time I was in Guernsey, so I wasn't local. But I remember reading about it, thinking, bloody hell, Mikey, you've bitten off a lot there. How was it? How was the experience? I've two young managers. You're at the age of, like you say, mid to late 20s. Yeah. It's a tough league, physical league, tough mentally. Some fairly hairy-ass men in there, and a lot of legacy stuff about the way the game perhaps was. How was it?
Tough. But I've always said to myself that I need to throw myself into them scenarios and experience everything when I get to where I actually want to be at the end. At the time as well, I was at City at the time, and when Vaz rang me, I was like, I was nervous. I was nervous, and I was looking at the squad, and they had I'd say half the squad was older than me. Some I played with, some I played against, and you sort of think, I'm going to be the one who's telling them what to do. Can I get the respect? And funny enough, I jumped in it. We had a really good pre-season. Feedback from the players, good feedback from the board. The fans liked what we were doing. And then when it came to that first game of the season, we actually flew out the blocks. I remember winning a local derby in the first game. I think it was 5-1. I'm like, this is good. And then it went downhill. It went downhill. Lot of challenges. I tell you what, the biggest thing for me was it was not so much the players. It was like managing the budget.
Yeah.
So the players that we brought in, if we were to field our best 11, we wouldn't have had any subs. So when you're in that scenario, it's difficult because then you're going to have to leave one or two good players out, and then you have to bring some young ones on the bench. So
you mean you wouldn't have had any subs because they'd have walked and gone somewhere else?
No. So because of the budget where we were at the time, if we was to play the best 11, we wouldn't have any subs.
Yeah.
And that, by the way, that's nothing on the club, because I thought it was brilliant by the club, because they went, there's your budget. Yeah. You can't buy a penny. And it was fantastic. And we ended up bringing in 2 or 3 really good players. And we were sort of sat there, and I remember writing the team down, and you obviously put the wage above it. And if we'd have fielded the best team, we'd have had no subs. So then you're debating, do we go on the bench? But it wasn't the right thing, really.
Yeah.
So we had to have a couple of harsh chats. Probably got it wrong. Got rid of probably one of their most senior players who's had most experience. Probably at the time I felt more comfortable working with the younger lads. So we got rid of one of the senior players there, and it sort of, I don't know, it sort of went downhill after that. On probably on the way that it did it. So it was a real learning curve, and then obviously it was difficult, and we'd upset a few people, and it was really hard. And then obviously when we got sacked at Christmas, and rightly so, we were struggling. It was an interesting one. But the biggest thing that I take from it is after we'd been sacked, I could have walked away, and Vaz could have walked away and gone, do you know what, it was the players, they weren't up to our standard. But I didn't think like that. I rang 4 or 5 of the players and said, and some good players there as well, by the way, had been around the leagues, and just sort of say, what did you like that I did? What didn't you like? Really, really interesting feedback. The training was good. So some of the demands were too high for them having full-time jobs and workloads, and some have got little just newborn babies. So the feedback was really, really good. So again, I wouldn't have had a little bit of success after that if it wasn't for that. It was a really, really good learning curve. It hurt though. It hurt. But
I bet. Did you take it bad at the time?
Just a couple of days have been quiet. Funny enough, we got offered a job straight after, which was interesting. And I wasn't ready for it. I think it was difficult because obviously I was at City at the time, so I was travelling from City at 6 o'clock, travelling over to get to a game at 8 o'clock, 5 minutes in, and so I just needed a bit of a breather. And it was a bit of a wake-up call because you think, because I'm working here, I can do this. This will be better than what the managers are. But listen, there's some good managers around there and some good players. And I learned a lot from it. And I'm glad I've gone through it, and I'll go through it again at some point because it's just a learning curve.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, you then had a bit, you concentrated on your career, I guess, into your full-time job, and then went back into non-league management a few years later. First as an assistant to Marshy at Taddy, and then as first team manager with Si. I mean, I was mighty impressed with what you two did in that season. You know, within a few minutes of going and get to the playoff final, and who knows how things might have gone for you personally, in terms of continuing that or and the club itself. But I mean, did you always have a mind that between the first job and the second job, which was what, 5-6 years apart?
But it wasn't actually. Funny enough, it wasn't. It was. I think it was the season after I went assistant manager to Marshy.
Oh, was it the season? Well, see, okay, but as a manager, let's say. Okay,
oh yeah.
Yeah, you've answered my question about actually, because you went in as an assistant. There was a natural path. Okay, so fine. Okay, so in that, when you did eventually get to manager, I'm sure you learned a lot from Marshy. But I mean, what did you do differently?
Just tweaked a lot of things. I think the training structure changed. I was a little bit more clued up on what it looked like to a semi-professional player compared to a professional player.
Yeah.
Obviously, just change. I know it's not rocket science, but just changing the night, so different distances from a Tuesday to a Thursday.
Yeah.
What we want the player to cover. I think making things simpler, that was probably the main thing, and I think that's why we're in the game. You start off in the career and you have all these ideas and you see all the stuff on social media, but actually the ones with the most experience make it as simple as possible.
Yeah.
So my message to the players was a lot simpler. The goals that we set were simple and clear, and that wasn't just from me. That was working with the senior players. So from the experience that I had at Pickering to then being assistant manager, I sort of learned that you needed the senior players and you needed to work with them because they've got a lot of experience in there.
Yeah.
There was international. If you look at the Tally team, we had international players in there. There's players who won Champions Leagues. There's players who played in and around the Championship. So you'd be silly not to sort of take that information and put it together. So listen, they were great. So take the information and then you go, right, this is what I want to do, and they'll give you the input and you go with it. And I think that was the biggest thing for me. And I was better at man-to-man management and not being feared of speaking to someone who's had more experience of playing.
Yeah.
And I think the relationship was big, and then just keeping it clear on the pitch. The biggest.
Nice, good. Well, it certainly worked, pal. It was a great season. Okay, let's move on to you then started a full-time role at Leeds, which was, I think, the reason why you stopped managing. Was that right?
It was, yeah. Tough decision.
Yeah, I bet it was. But in hindsight, how do you see that decision now?
I think, again, for my personal development, it's been great.
Yeah.
It's been fantastic. I think, obviously, with the craze with Marcelo being there, and obviously everybody knows about Marcelo. Anybody who wants to progress as a coach wants to know what he's doing, what his methods are. So being able to sort of watch them on a daily basis is phenomenal. But not just that, like the rest of the coaches there, like, you know, the 23s and the 18s, and then even down to the coaches with the foundation, who, you know, the staff in there have had 20 years have been at a pro club. So like just learning constantly, whichever direction I go in, I can pick somebody's brains. Again, this scenario, you've got players in there who've played at a top level. You've got players who have played like semi-professional. You've got managers in there who've managed football league. So for me, it's just like a fountain of knowledge just keeps coming in, and I love it. It's been mind-blowing because there's so many different ideas and different directions for them personally, but it's brilliant. You know, it's fantastic for learning.
Has it changed? Has it changed your fundamentals?
No, I think. Listen, I think it's 18 years I've sort of been coaching, believe it or not. I've seen everything go around in circles, you know, new trends, but it's not really a new trend. It's been around before. Yeah. So I think my fundamentals stay the same, but just different ideas and different twists on things. You know, it'd be silly not to take the information in and try tweak what you've got. Yeah. So I just take in everything I can. And one thing that I learned from the early days, you know, I was part of a really good community program at Leeds when I started. I didn't ask enough questions. I didn't get enough information. Yeah. So now I just try to find 5-10 minutes to ask questions with all different types of staff, whether it's SNC, whether it's a foundation coach with the 9s, whether it's the 18s, whether it's 23s. I just keep learning and just keep jotting things down and trying to add it to my values, really.
Brilliant. Love that. I mean, it must be, you know, being at a club that the whole world is looking at because of the first team manager. It must be a roller coaster of a journey for all of you. I mean, there's been the Fly on the Wall documentary, and just I'm sure that there must be like a huge queue of media people there every day from all over the world wanting to see what's going on. So to be at the heart of it and seeing what's happening at the training ground every day must be phenomenal. Yeah,
no, it is. Listen, it's brilliant. It's good to see how everybody works and good to see what they do on a daily basis. Listen, I think that the main thing is like how hard everybody works, right from the bottom right to the top. I think that's the biggest thing that I've seen. Like the work behind the scenes is just phenomenal. Yeah, really.
I bet. Thorough. Okay. Let's take it from then one of the world's most famous managers to another one of the world's most famous managers, Jim Collis.
Legend.
We'll have a little part of the conversation dedicated to Jim for different reasons. One, partly because Jim's, for those people who don't know, Jim Collis was a legendary manager in the York area for many years. He also managed Tadcaster Albion towards the end of his career, and I think actually helped to start the ball rolling to get the club to where it is today. And I hope that other people agree with me on that. But Jim's currently struggling with Alzheimer's, with fairly developed Alzheimer's. So I think I want to just tip my hat to him as part of this conversation. You and I played for him, and he was someone who we've all got amazing stories about. You know, he used to leave a message on my hi-fi when he tried to get hold of me. Used to get his words mumbled up and mixed up all the time, but he won so many trophies in football in Yorkshire, particularly over many years, and had so many great players. And I think to try and tie it to this conversation, I just want to ask you, old school football foundations, the stuff that you're built on, the culture, your love for the game. How did those experiences help shape that? I mean, I know, for example, your granddad, who's been, I assume, probably the biggest influence on you, or certainly one of the biggest influences. I know he was a big part of that legacy that Jim had in York as well. I mean, tell me a little bit about how you feel like, because I think it's really interesting that a guy who is an elite coach, you're an elite coach, and I think you're going to go on to even more elite things. Used to sit with pint of John Smiths in the pub on a Sunday lunchtime with a load of ex-professional footballers and a bunch of vagabonds and rogues in York, where the game was nothing like it is to people of this generation, and yet it shaped so many people. And I'm putting across some of my views, I guess, there, but I really want to know about yours.
No, I think if we're talking about them experiences, the old school values have just sort of, I don't know, like from them guys, like first and foremost, like the environment, what they created, how they enjoyed that, but like how they were driven, how they pushed each other. Like, listen, they'll go and have a drink, and I remember when I was younger, and I'll tell you a story in a minute, but like just watching them like in the pub after having a pint and watching the scores with the bets and stuff. The amount of work the hard work they're putting in the week for, let's say, when I was younger, they were semi-professional, believe it or not. And then they obviously didn't get the floodlights. But the amount of work they used to put in, even then when they dropped back into like the counties, they'd be training Tuesday night, there'd be no one missing. And if there was, there'd be a fine system. And you're talking like a local semi-professional level. And the standard that was in there, like right to the end, was just phenomenal. And that's not hard to do for me. It's not hard to do. I just think it's just simple foundations of working hard, sticking together, pushing each other, and then in making sure that you stick together, no matter what happens on the pitch after, whether you're having a pint or whether modern day now you sat on a bus, just being grown up about it. I know it's nothing rocket science and I ain't saying anything different, but they stick with me. They'll stick with me all the time, and I won't change. And I just think it's a real simple thing on working hard, stick together, and making sure the environment's right. And I think you get them right 9 times out of 10, you're going to do all right as a player or as a team.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, forget development and coaching. Your passion for coaching. If you're a manager and you get good players, then you're halfway there, aren't you? And he was brilliant at that, because Jim used to walk the playing fields of the York area, universities, the colleges, the whole area, and he had no problems with stopping a game and walking on and asking someone if they wanted to come down and train at Roundtrees. And I love that. I love that about him. But as I say, I think it's a real, it's not a clash of cultures, because you're taking the best of everything that you've had on your journey, and I would say the same in my own journey, albeit at a slightly lower level. And I think what you learned in that group, I mean, I would never have gone and played where I did if I hadn't have been playing for Jim. There's no two ways about it. And the lads, who were absolutely brilliant lads, I mean, some of the best lads I've ever played with, the best dressing rooms, unbelievable. On that
one, Kev, like you got to remember, like I was younger. And I wouldn't have gone. I remember going to. I don't know if you remember when I went to Middlesbrough after that, and I just felt it was like playing with kids. No offense to anybody, but I was playing with kids, because I came in a change room at 14, 15, Jim Collis, and then and like I'm probably building you up here, but there was players like yourself, and listen, we could reel off players in that team who had all had a decent career or were going on to a decent career. So like the way of like learning and watching you guys and how you was sort of helped me out, but that stuck with me, and it won't change, because listen, there was some top players in there. We could reel some players, including yourself, and it got to a point where like yourself would be going off and playing at a good level, semi-professional, and then still coming and playing, and playing and enjoying it. But not losing that winning instinct, and that's as a young man, I'm seeing that and I'm thinking, I like that. That's what I want to be, and that sort of molded me. And then whenever I'm in a change room, that's what I see, that's what I want. And do you know what? Whenever I've sort of got that right, we're usually successful, or we have a really it's interesting. But yeah, it is. I loved it. And then Jim Collis' famous saying, "Defenders defend, midfield create, and attackers score."
That was his team talk. It didn't need to get any more complicated than that. Brilliant days, and best wishes to Jim and to his family. And if anyone out there wants to get in touch with them, if you get in touch with me or Mikey on Twitter, I'm sure we can pass on best wishes. And he's obviously having a tougher time now, so our thoughts are with him. Okay, let's move on a little bit to from Jim Collis to the technology in the game. So let's go back again, another light years jump. You do some amazing stuff with technology. I know it's part of some of your coach education, but I'm sure you're using it day to day. Tell me a little bit about how you're adopting technology now and how that's changed in the last few years.
Well, it's changed massively. Everything used to just be on a piece of paper, put it in your pocket, off you go. I think, do you know what? It comes back. Loads of people ask me this question, funny enough, but it comes back to my art days. Yeah. So I like visuals. I like seeing things. It's funny, but it does actually come back to that. So the modern technology, I like it, and I think you can make it simpler for the players as well. I send players little clips of the scenarios that we've seen, and the players see it. You look at like the modern day coaches now, even with us on the training pitch, they've all got iPads. It's clearer. They've got the videos, they've got the notes on there, and I don't think some coaches try to be proud and not take anything on the pitch, but if you've got the clear message in front of you, your clear message is going to be on the pitch. So because as a coach and as me, we've all tried to be a bit proud and I'm going to remember that session. I'm going to go out and you miss something. Yeah. So it's really important, especially at a top level, I would say as well. Like you can't miss anything. You haven't got much time prepping for big games, and that little small detail will be a difference of like winning 3 points, drawing or losing. So I think the technology is, if it's used in the right way, I think it's really good, and I think it's good for the players. Don't get me wrong, I've seen people overuse it and overcomplicate it, but that comes back to the message that I was saying, that the more experience you gain in football, it becomes simpler. And visuals that I use, I try to keep it as simple as possible. Have I got a lot of stuff behind that and a lot of things? Yes, I have. But it's just that message to the player needs to be as simple as possible. But I love it. What about you? I work in technology. My full-time job's in technology, but I don't adopt it enough. Session plans and what have you. Obviously, I've been using those online for a few years, but I don't use it enough. But I have to say, over here in Spain, I probably use more visual aids than most do, in my experience that I've seen so far. Obviously, that's accepting the very highest level, but the best grassroots clubs, the best amateur semi-pro type clubs below the top two divisions. I think I brought probably some ideas certainly to the club last year that people have adopted, and again, it's as you say, it's about particularly within another language, you have to rely on other things. The way I communicate has been really challenged by coaching in Spain, because I'm quite wordy, as everyone knows. Anyone who's listened to me for more than a minute or two will know. And my challenge when I was in the UK was to talk less and to be more succinct and to make the message more simple and to keep the players' attention and to ensure that everything was fresh and everything was, we never got stale. The use of those visual aids around the changing room, on the training ground during training sessions, I think has always been good to break up my, the monotony of my dulcet tones. Over here, it's even more important because I only have so many words, and once I've used those words, I can't keep repeating them. So I then have to go for a different reason, actually, to technology or to visual aids. But I think what I need to do is understand analysis a lot more. I think, I look at you and I think I know some of the work that you do, and I see some of the work that you put out on Twitter. And if anyone hasn't seen it, look back through some of the stuff Mikey's put out there in recent times about Leeds
analysing Leeds' performances, looking at the unit-based understanding, the midfield, the defensive units and their role in let's say pressing as an example, and applying pressure to win the ball back. It's absolutely brilliant. But yeah, I need to do more work on analysis. I need to understand how to analyse a game using software and using technology better. I know how to analyse it in my own mind, but I don't know how to apply that and use some of the benefits that would make me a better analyst of the game. That's just my kind of my where I am with it.
I think to sort of add to that, a guy that I came across a while ago, and listen, he's an absolute legend. He's a guy called Dick Bate.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. He's an old John, you know. He went to St John's.
Yeah. I know. He used a story. Me and Natural Side, we got speaking to him about it, and it was brilliant.
Yeah.
But we did the specialist courses that he ran, and listen, it's no offence to, I love all the courses and I love learning, but the courses that we did with him were just on another level. Yeah. One thing that he always talked about was the future game, and I remember sitting speaking with him about the future coach, and he was like, try to map it out, have a look at it, and try to be ahead of it. And do you know what? One of them was analysis, one of them was presentations, one of them was videos.
Yeah.
It's the modern game now, and you know, listen, it's difficult to keep up because it goes so quick. But if you want to stay in the game, you want to stay in it for a long time, it's something that you have to adapt. And you've got to remember that if the modern player now at 15, 16 is getting getting the resources now, when they get to the top level, you've got to be able to supply that as well, because that's what they know.
Absolutely.
So it's a big thing. I wouldn't ever want to be in that scenario where I was a first team gaffer somewhere and a player's come through a pro academy and he gets there and there's no visuals or no videos or anything.
That's the thing. I think the big point for me on this is, you know, today's player has different expectations, has lived a different life, has been educated a different way, has been socialised a different way to players 20 years ago when we started, or when we were in and around what we thought was performance stuff then. And I'm the first to hold my hand up and say, you know, I'm bordering on dinosaur territory now on some aspects of the game that I really need to you know, educate myself on. You know, I consider myself in your generation. People a little bit older than me always say our generation. I'm like, well, I'm not quite as old as you. I'm doing the same with you now. I'm in your generation, and I see how keen an eye for detail you have, and I've always had, if I'm honest. Even before it became mainstream, I remember some of the stuff you did back 10, 12 years ago, and I was blown away by it, if I'm honest. And it was like some kind of futurist fantasy at that time, and I didn't understand it completely, but I did after a period of time. So yeah, it's
I made a mistake with I made a mistake with it. I did try it with the semi-professional players at one point, and it was too much for them. It was just too much for them. So again, that's just another experience of like, right, how do I simplify that? So the players are getting more used to it now. If you look back at the Tadcaster team that we had, there was obviously you've got your old guard who've been there and played, who you show them before you put it all out, but then you had players who'd come from Leeds United, come from Wrexham, different clubs, only 18 who'd experienced it. So it was just trying to get that balance right. Yeah. But I have made plenty of mistakes with that.
Well, it's funny though, isn't it? Because I think it has been a difficult. I'm sure it'll be the same in the future. Technology and stuff, the pace of change will increase yet further. But it feels to me like we're caught in between two generations. I'm sure everyone of a certain age in a similar role probably thinks the same. But like you say, catering for both elements of the changing room in the last 10, 15 years has been actually quite difficult. I wonder what it'll be like when all these kids come through and everyone is technology savvy. There's no dinosaurs left or no old school guys left in the changing room. But I wonder what the next new school kids are going to be expecting, because I don't know. I genuinely don't know.
I think that's the thing that, you know, obviously Dick Bates said about like just planning for the future, just see what's coming. All his content on the player was around the future player. Give me an example. He was talking about the speed of the game. He put loads of stats on the speed of the game in Champions League, Premiership, all the top 5 leagues, what it looked like. and how quick it was progressing. So then he sort of put up there of like what it'd look like in 5 years. So all his training drills around that.
Yeah.
So give me an example. It was a player 2 seconds on the ball, but in the modern day it's going to be 1 second. Why he drills around? So it was interesting. It was that got me thinking, and that's why I try to sort of stay with the times if I can.
Mate, you're doing a good job of it. You're doing a good job of it. I'm gonna have to say something bad about you because I keep saying nice things about you. It's too much of a loving at the moment.
This is the nicest chat I've ever had.
You're gonna go away from this bouncing.
Usually
okay. Sorry.
I'm usually getting slated.
Yeah, don't worry. I'll save some abuse for you for later. Okay, let's move on. On that theme a little bit. How do you see England? How do you see England in comparison to the rest of the world now?
I'm quite excited. I think we had a chat on the phone last year. Was it last year? We were talking for about an hour. What I like is like their model behind everything now. The like the in possession, out possession. I like the specialist coaches. I think the players are getting well educated. I think the message is clear. I am looking forward to see where we are in like 5 or 6 years. And obviously, I think Gareth's obviously a modern coach. Yeah. So I'm actually quite excited about where we go. And I think that's just more because I've had players who are in the England setup, and I like to always speak to them about what they've learned and what they take from it. And I think the message is clear, and I think what they want is clear. It's just making sure that when they get to that top end, have they got enough experience of winning and losing to find a way to win the big games. There's more players going out on loan, and there's more players playing abroad, and I think that's brilliant. It's just you can't move away from experience, players being in the scenario day in, day out. And that's my only thought around it, or my negative thought around it, really.
I 100% agree. I'm going to give you an example. The defensive unit for England's team at the moment, you could pick 3 or 4 or 5 players to start in central defence at the moment. It's very difficult, and it's not like you got John Terry and Rio Ferdinand as a pair who probably pick themselves. But my view is that defenders have to play together to develop unit-based understanding, and at international level that's very, very difficult. And I cannot ever understand why the logic of a national team manager constantly changing a team that clearly lacks defensive unit-based understanding. How would you go about that if you were him now?
Similar sort of thoughts to you, really. I think I would map out. Listen, we all have ideas, and there's no right or wrong. But similar to you, there, I would try get especially my 2 centre halves and goalkeeper, trying to play as many games as they can together before major competition. Yeah. I think it's so important, and you don't have to be the best. They don't have to be the best one. Just have to build a relationship up. You can have the best 2 centre halves and they're not play together, and you put them together and they'll be all over the place. You can see it in teams when people go out and buy new players. It happens all the time. So I don't know how they would do it. I know at a younger end now, they're getting to more tournaments and doing things. Maybe they should look at pairing them up at a younger age so they build a relationship. I don't know. Can they do that? I can't answer you that, but I just think it's so important that they are together and playing all the time. Like you go back, you name a couple of names there, but they're on the sheet all the time. Your Ferdinand and your Campbells, people they knew they were playing together, so they played together quite a bit. So they built a relationship. Why can't we create that? It's an interesting one. Because everyone will have a different idea on it, and I'm pretty sure. Look, listen, Gareth will know more than anyone, won't he? So
I think one thing's for sure, he will have a plan. He'll have a number of plans for it, I'm sure. So I'm not in any way thinking that he's not prepared for it. It's an obvious observation, I guess, to make. It's funny you say there about not having the best players. That's an amazing comment, and I don't hear people that acknowledge that enough in the game. But the example that I would probably give is Jack Charlton next to Bobby Moore. Bobby Moore, if he was playing today, would be the equivalent of, I don't know, I guess, I don't know, Baresi, but let's say Baresi a little bit later on as an example. Yeah, it's probably nearest, isn't it? And how much footage can you find of Baresi? How much praise can you get for Baresi out there? And yet, look at Chiellini, for example, as probably a Jack Charlton equivalent, and the guy, the way he receives the ball, the way, you know, how smooth he is, I guess, in transition with the ball, without the ball, whatever. It isn't. It's a bit more mechanical, but it you know, the way that defenders and the way that players all over the pitch affect the game is not necessarily determined by just how fan friendly they are. To use that as an expression.
Yeah, I think as a whole, I think we've sort of took a step backwards on defending anyway, because like the modern game and everybody wanting to build the attack and get defenders to join in. I just think it comes back to one of my sort of principles and values from years ago. Is like, first thing is defenders need to defend. And listen, I've made the mistake. I've done it. I've had centre halves splitting, and listen, you might get loads of centre halves commenting on here where I've got them split and I want them to play, but they're a defender. So defend first, and we'll build a little bit on that. And I think we sort of moved away from it. I don't think we've got many 1v1 defending specialists. If you look through it, I do actually know that the FA have highlighted that. But just going back to the basics, defending and then getting sort of the balance right. So you might have a nice player who can play and build, and the other one next to you might just be an out-and-out stopper.
Yeah.
And I think that's important, really important. Go back to the AC Milan of Nesta and Maldini. When I talked about the balance, them two just wanted to defend, didn't they? Defend, got the balls going in the box, clearance. I loved it, and I just think if you can add that to your team, you know, you're off to a winner.
It's really funny because I avoided talking about this subject, about projecting my views on what defenders needed to do, because I was one of them. It was the only thing I could do. I definitely didn't have much ability on the ball, but what I could do was to get first contact, was to do, you know, do the horrible stuff, was to block people's path to goal. And I know there was a time as a coach when I felt embarrassed to say that I felt strongly about that, because the general culture was about playing out from the back, was about, you know, having universal footballers who could do everything, and actually passing the ball and retaining possession was the best way to defend. And I kind of allowed myself to be brainwashed a little bit on that, a bit too much, when I probably should have stuck to what I knew to be true. I just didn't back myself from a confidence point of view.
Yeah. No, I think listen, like me as anyone, I think obviously you've seen my teams play. I love to control the game. I love to get control.
Yeah.
I do. And one of the biggest things that you sort of go back to is the principles again, your values. Like, defenders defend, don't they? The Jim Collis saying, they defend. One of the biggest things that I see now is like probably the one that frustrates me the most is fullbacks not stopping crosses.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're a fullback, you know, listen, I want the fullback to attack. I want him to be creative. I want him to have all the touches. But do you know what? Remember the basics. Like, remember as a fullback, it would be come round, cover your centre halves, and then if the ball's on your side, win your duel, stop the cross, and you had a good game. Now, I know the game's evolving, and I get that, and I love it. But it's not hard to get that value into a fullback. So let's start with that, and then teach them the rest. And I look at it now, and listen, I think we are looking at it. I think we've got some top fullbacks going forward, and I think we've got some top centre halves who can build and play. Yeah. But let's be honest, we're not the best defensively. No, is that because we've moved away from it slightly? I don't know. It's up for discussion, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. But in general, you're optimistic about you know the journey that English football's on, you know, in the last few years, and what you expect to see going forward. Yeah,
I think obviously I spent all last year, 2019, down at St George's, working through my badges. So I got to see what the model was, and for me, they're very clear on what they're doing. Yeah. The message to the players are very, very clear. I just hope they stick with it because I like it. and I hope they just keep developing it and tweaking it. So yeah, I like it, and I think there's some top players coming through the academies at the moment. By the way,
huge pool of talented young players. I think on the periphery of the England team now for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting because going back to the courses with Dick Bate, he was saying that we'll produce some world-class centre-halves, funny enough, when we're talking about the future game. Because he thought that we had centre-halves who could defend, but they'll be able to play. But it's sort of, if you look at it now, we're actually creating not world-class, but players who've got potential to be world-class wingers, which none of us thought that would come. So, but I think that's the modern game now, isn't it? The way every club's doing the training models, the 1v1s attacking, the new S&C stuff, so they're more explosive, they're more agile. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for it. I just hope they stick with it.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say that we've talked a lot about defending and maybe the hole we have in our knowledge and experience and processes at the moment on defending, but I still love to see expansive football and exciting football, and I love that England has got exciting footballers who 1v1 can do it against the best in the world, and I wouldn't be surprised if we go on and we win a major tournament in the next 3 tournaments, because I think we've got more to worry other teams than they've got to worry us.
No, I agree.
Yeah, good. Okay, final point. We're up to an hour. It always flies by, pal, talking to you. As you say, we could talk for hours, days, and I'm sure we will continue to do so. But in the future, what's Mikey Morton expecting the next? You're 18 years into your coaching career, and to be honest, you're still a pup in some respects. Compared to some of the older, to the older and more experienced people out there, you've got so much time. And I'm sure you're going to go on and achieve an awful lot. But what do you see the future holding for you?
Good question. I think obviously, if I'm funny, I've sort of mapped everything out. I wanted to experience all different areas of the game, and then sort of pick somewhere where I want to go. So I think that was probably one of the reasons of sort of coming back into Leeds as well, and sort of having a look at the YDP stage again, having a look at youth. And if I'm honest, I probably see myself. I'd like to sort of go back into sort of the management game, but it won't be right now. So I've got so much more to learn. But I sort of see myself sort of going down that direction, or a coach, first team coach. I like the environment with the men, and I like the sort of winning and losing aspect of it. If I'm honest, I love me. I love youth development. I love helping players. I love seeing it. But obviously, in this country, there's not leagues. There's not a massive emphasis on winning and losing at a young age, which is rightly so. Because to develop him, I still think there should be a small part of it in there, because I think that's what the first team's about. But you can't. For me, it's the buzz of that winning and losing and knowing where it falls on you. If you lose,
that's the drug. That's the drug, isn't it? I know it's really, really. It's a kind of longer, slower burner when young players go on and either are successful in the game or in life in general, and you've influenced them in some small way. I know that's hugely satisfying, to you and to me and to anyone. But the drug and the highs and the lows, the big hits come from the winning and losing in those environments, don't they?
Yeah, of course. I just think you've obviously been in it, and it's addictive, isn't it? It's addictive. But same as youth development, I love what I'm doing. I could quite happily work in youth development for another 5-10 years. I'm in no rush. But I do see myself in the future having another pop at managing, and having a good go at it.
Well, I think with your accumulated experience and the layers that you've added, having various management jobs as well as so much time out in the training ground, producing so many great players over the years. I think there's a hybrid model out there that is a great blend of old school and new school, and you're not going to look very much further than you for that kind of model. So, Mikey, I'm going to draw it to a close there. Been an absolute pleasure. I really just engaging. We all, same with anyone. Anyone who's been on, we've had some wonderful guests on here so far. Very talented people, And I just think your opinions and what you put across in this are going to make people think. People are going to enjoy listening to them, and they're going to enjoy learning more about you as a person, I think, as well. And I certainly, I learn a little bit more about you, even though I know you reasonably well, every time we speak, and I love that about it. So thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I know you're a busy man. Best wishes with Leeds United and the short term, and I'm sure you'll be a big success wherever you do or wherever you go.
Cheers, Kev. Thanks for having me on. And listen, just one thing, like everybody you've had on's been excellent, and just keep doing the good work that you're doing. I think it's important that we share everything, and obviously with all the hard work that you're putting in, I think it's been great, and I'm pretty sure you'll keep going and keep getting loads of good coaches and managers on. So thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure. Top man.
Pleasure's all mine. Right. I'm going to go and I've probably got some puddles to sweep up in this wet Spanish day. So look after yourself, pal. Thanks so much again.
No worries, mate. Cheers.
Cheers, Mikey. Bye, mate.
Well.